That is a good one, Rob.
Yes,
I really like your style.
The bliss of the abyss, it's here now.
Welcome back to the Bliss of the Abyss. Today on the show we have actor extraordinaire Ben Fox. Ben trained at East 15 Acting School, currently can be seen in The Passenger at the Finborough Theatre, along with me, of course. Ben's credits include Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Beauty and the Beast, Sweeney Todd, Detective Pikachu. He's been on the West End, he's been on UK tours, and we basically didn't talk about any of that. No, we did. There are a few anecdotes in here, but we didn't talk about the time he met Angelina Jolie, and we didn't talk about this, that, and the other, but we did talk about the other, this, and that. And it makes for a fantastic episode of The Bliss of the Abyss. So without any further ado, may I introduce, with pleasure, Ben Fox. Anyway, look, welcome to the show. Thanks very much for coming in to do this.
Thank you, Robert.
This is a real treat. You are the first, and therefore most important, of the Passenger series. Other people said they want to do the show, but you're the one who turned up.
Yeah. You just have to turn up sometimes. Yeah,
exactly.
That's all there is to it. Right under the... What's the name of this plant, by the way? Is it a cheese plant?
It is a fiddle fig.
Oh, wow.
I do have a cheese
Do you know
plant.
what? I can see that. I can see that that's a fig thing.
Yeah.
We've got a false fig plant, tree, bush, in our garden, which doesn't do much.
A fake one in the garden?
It's a fake one.
But why put it...
It's called a false fig thing.
No,
So
as in it's a real plant.
Oh, it's a real one?
Okay.
Sorry, but
I
the
thought you had
plant
plastic
is called...
plants in your garden. I don't know if that's the right idea. But anyway.
We have plastic plants in the garden. There you go. I'll start a whole thing. Well, I'm very honoured to be here.
Good, as you should be.
I'm glad that I am the first and therefore most important.
Yep.
Of my cast, and probably
Most talented.
If
handsome,
they also met, if
female.
your audience had met the rest of the cast,
Yeah.
they wouldn't be surprised. I think.
No, they're going to be very heavily edited episodes as well. Me and them. I'll only be able to squeeze a couple of minutes out of it. And,
you might get 5 or 6.
Is that plant annoying you? It's
No, I quite like it.
You like being in the foliage?
It's like one of those things that you put on the wire thing.
The skull thing that you put on your head that gives the massage.
And it
that
slightly
kind of,
gets...
like cracking an egg on your head kind of thing.
Yeah.
What are they called? Yeah,
those little massage spider things.
Yeah.
Wire massage spider. That's what I'm calling it.
A wire
It's
massage spider. Yeah.
But they are good.
They are, I know.
They are good.
Yeah.
Like a little orgasm.
Have you got one of those back scratchers as well? Extendable. It's a similar idea.
No, but we used to have one. Maybe it was a COVID thing.
Yeah,
You'd get stuff like that.
Definitely. What should we do? I don't know, buy some crap
Dropped
from China?
at your door. Yeah. I had a back scratcher during the COVID years. Those dark COVID years.
Yeah, we sanitised it.
Well, it kept me sane.
Did you have any good things that came out of COVID? Any work or interesting moments in your life or anything sort of extraordinary?
Ooh, I wrote music. I wrote music for Foxtoss, our little kids' music thing, which Rosie does, my missus. But I wrote music, and I also wrote music for myself, which has never been performed. Actually, I have performed once. I know.
We do have a guitar upstairs.
I'm going to be talking to myself into... well, do you know what? I'd have to go and practice them because...
Oh, no.
No, seriously.
It's been a while.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd have to remind myself of everything. I perform. So yes, I wrote songs in COVID, during COVID, and it was good for that because
nothing else to do.
There was nothing else.
Were they about COVID, or were you finding yourself in different?
They were all for tiny young kids.
Yeah.
But the great thing is about writing songs for tiny young kids is you are obliged to not be pretentious, and you are obliged to sort of direct about stuff. So you can't talk about drugs, you can't swear, you can't talk about sex or politics or anything existential really. It's just you think about a subject, you go, I'm going to write about playing in a river, playing by a river.
There we go, that's safe.
Or something like that.
A woke river, Ben.
A woke river. It's an inclusive river.
There we go, much better.
You could have a coracle. Do you know what a coracle is?
I don't, for my shame.
Right, okay, because I was talking about me and my daughter, Ruby, 12 years old, shout out to Rubes. We were walking along the Seven Sisters down south on the coast, very near Beachy Head.
Yes. Oh.
That part of the world. And it's an estuary walk that goes all the way out to the sea, and it's about a 2.5 mile walk, not far. And then you walk all the way back. Mm-hmm. But on this estuary, long, winding, almost oxbowing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful, serene, calm. But that is where you want a coracle. And a coracle is one of those tiny little boats that you can only get yourself into. It was for working people on estuaries. And I guess they would be getting, I don't know, oysters or stuff that you might find.
For short trips.
Tiny little trips. So you literally get it's a thing simply to get onto the water.
Right.
But they're that big, and they used to be made of basketry and stuff like that. And they'd use wax and leather and stuff like that, just so that, to make it waterproof.
Yeah. You can move the plant.
No, I'm liking it. And I'm liking the fact that they can hear it. Anyway, yes. So talking about singing and writing songs, and it's a really lovely way of writing songs because you are obliged not to use any of that stuff that usually, because I'm a pretentious git who wants to seem like really profound, I'm trying to write fantastically good lines.
Right.
That change people's lives, and of course,
it's easy.
No, you never do. So you might as well write something about a river and go and play. Yeah,
they do change people's lives in different ways, though, don't they? Kids' songs are learning to sing and sing in a group and all of that for kids is really important, isn't it?
Yep. As my wife is taking her first choir tonight.
Aha, yes.
And so we'll see what happens. She's going to do "Lean on Me."
Big one.
And anyway,
solo.
No, but she's got all the various different harmonies and. But it's a nice one because it has different things and it has the clapping bit and it's going to get a bit funky towards the end apparently. But it's cool. We did this music thing, Fox Tots, it's called. Again, drop the name.
Is there a website?
It was not. There is a website. Or yes, there is a website. It's mainly on Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
Look how rubbish I am at promoting my own thing. There's videos and there's YouTube stuff and blah blah blah. But it's all our own music, and I'm not going to sit here promoting Fox Tots. But why was I saying this?
I brought it up. Singing songs, estuary, coracle.
Just a coracle. No, I was talking about the river as you said, is it a woke song? And I said it's a totally inclusive song, and you can put anything on this river, from a coracle to a canoe, I was going to say.
I see. Okay,
to a Chinese junk. Any vessels
a skiff.
At all. A skiff would be allowed. Yeah. Anyway, no. So this leads me on to a thought I was having this morning.
Yes.
Because I was watching Jane Fonda do her exceptionally brilliant speech. When she won her Lifetime Achievement Award. And I was watching all these, rich Hollywood stars and up to the point, and I was going, why do I love watching these things? And why do I love these people so much? Because they're just rich, bloody actors. And then I thought about when David Bowie died, and I'm a big fan of David Bowie. And I remember Rosie had told me in the morning, and I was pretty traumatised, and I took her to work, and as I was driving back, I started crying. And I had to pull over. And then I started driving off again, and I started crying. And then I heard Iggy Pop say something utterly beautiful about his relationship with him. And I started crying, literally like a fool. And I thought, well, this is strange. I've never cried about anyone who I didn't know in their passing.
Yeah, right.
And I obviously didn't know David Bowie at all. But then, of course, and you think, how stupid. Oh, come on, get a grip. You didn't even know him. And then you realise that your relationship
Yeah.
My relationship with David Bowie has been hours and hours and hours of listening to, and especially someone like David Bowie who had all these different personas and different styles of music. Hours of different bits of his personality coming in through my ears.
Yeah.
Heart, ears, Exactly. And you go, you do know him.
Of course. There's some of the words he wrote, it's tattooed on your heart,
Yep. And you thought, and that's, that was a 50-year relationship.
Yeah.
And quite loyal I was to him as well. Throughout all that time. Weirdly, never read anything about him. I don't read stuff about my rock stars. But of course, when he died, lots of people gave me books, so I was kind of obliged to. And there's a lot of good ones. But
he's got an interesting life as well, doesn't he? He was from round here, wasn't he? He's a Brixton boy. And he's called, is he David Jones?
David Jones.
Yeah.
But he couldn't take David Jones because of the Monkees lead singer.
Right.
Davy Jones. He was Davy Jones and the Lower Third was one of his first groups. But he was Brixton boy. And he lived in around Bromley.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, but in his early days he did an album that was kind of Anthony Newley-esque.
Okay.
Which was like he'd sort of sing like that. And I remember doing a show with a guy, and that's the only way we spoke to each other. He's sort of David Bowie. All right there, Paul. Yes, mate. How are you there today, Ben? I'm fine. And we'd just talk to each other in these Anthony Newley, David Bowie voices. But he wrote a song. It was about dreaming. It's a very special talent that you've got, my friend. You can travel anywhere with anyone you care. It's a very special knowledge that you got, my friend. You can walk around in New York while you sleep in bed. Now, I thought it was sleep in bed, but in fact, it's sleep in penge. You could walk around in New York while you sleep in penge. And I always thought he said bed for years and years. And someone said, he doesn't say bed, he says penge, Ben. Which, I'm only saying this, listeners.
Yes, tell them.
Because I live in Sydenham, which is next door to Penge.
Yes, but also, of course, this is a mondegreen. And this is what we were talking about the other day.
How do you spell mondegreen? Right, before we go into mondegreen, how do you spell it?
Mondegreen. Mondegreen. Yeah.
Wow, where's that flipping word from? Mondegreen.
So I looked it up. It's coined by an American author from the 50s. I want to say 54, but that could be wrong. And it was the lyrics to a song that she had heard as a child song growing up. There follows here a rather painful couple of minutes where I try and remember the source of mondegreen. So, in fact, what the source is the American writer Sylvia Wright coined the term in 1954, recalling a childhood memory of her mother reading the Scottish ballad The Bonnie Earl o' Moray and mishearing the words laid him on the green as Lady Mondegreen. All right, back to the show. Instead of laid, it's laid something in the green. And so she coined the term as in these things that we mishear.
Yes.
And I told you my favourite the other day is they're living on a prayer. You gotta hold on to what you got. It doesn't make a difference if we're naked or not. You've got some good ones. What were some that you came up with the other day?
We were showing someone doing the usual, we've had 3 glasses of wines and now we're into the YouTube. Oh, I'll show you one. Ooh, well, this reminds me of this one.
Yeah.
And then we got to Peter Kay.
Yes, that's right. He has lots, yeah.
It's a whole mondegreen section.
Yeah.
And it's something about the hot dogs.
The hot dogs.
Will go on.
Yeah, hot dogs will go on.
It's Titanic from Celine Dion.
Titanic song, yeah.
Hot dogs will go on. And he says it before to the audience.
Yeah.
Listen to this, he goes, hot dogs. And you go, inside, no.
Yeah.
And it's so slow the way Celine Dion sings it, and you're preparing yourself. You go, no, it's not going to be hot dogs will go on. And he's right. It sounds like hot dogs.
Did you ever have a dream? Is the song. You can walk around in New York while you sleep in Penge.
You can walk around in New York while you sleep in Penge. And there he is. Why was I talking about David Bowie? Oh, sorry. Just those little ends of conversations, detail. It's because I was thinking, actually, if I relate, because I started about seeing all these flipping actors, and I was going, why do I get so excited about watching all these? I see the picture of Jeff, and I was thinking about David Bowie making a big impression on me.
Yeah.
But if I think of, say, Robert De Niro as an obvious, how many hours?
Yeah.
Have I been with Robert De Niro in a small dark room?
And there's the psychological thing as well. If you've seen them at the cinema, then they're huge. They're larger than life.
Yes.
They are bigger. So there's this kind of like, worship the god of the screen type thing that just I think is a part of us. We're impressed by bigger figures in general, and they're larger than life, and so it feels
absolutely is larger than life. And I've always, no great surprise, I'm an actor, but I love film. I love being in cinemas.
Yeah.
And I saw Conclave, weirdly,
I want to see that.
on the very night that I was going to audition. I auditioned for What We're In because I was waiting for Tim Supple.
Waiting for Supple.
Yeah, the audition of 9:30 at night, Tim Supple, in Essex. I had to get, and I knew I was going to go and meet him at Liverpool Street Station. And I said to my agent, sorry, is this all right?
This is great.
Right. So I knew I had to go and see Tim Supple. And initially, my agent was talking to producer, Toby, and they were trying to work out where. And apparently I was going to meet him at about 9 p.m. on a Monday night at Liverpool Street Station.
This is not industry standard.
This is not industry standard. Yes, and it sounds... Anyway, on Monday, on the day, it's around lunchtime, I phone up my agent. I go, any clarification? Do I just go to Liverpool Street, with some loose change and some prophylactics in my pocket, waiting for some stranger to turn up? Anyway, we were playing, voice message tennis, and basically, we'll just go into London and we'll clarify this. I was there at about 6 p.m. and I thought, well, I'm miles off. I'll go and see a film. I went to see The Conclave, and I was glad that I saw that at the cinema because it's something that you just need to. You don't want distractions. You don't want to be able to get up and have a cup of tea and put it on pause and stuff. Yeah. It's a brilliant film.
I do want to watch it.
And I want to watch it again. Anyway, so I come out of that film. Then I get a voicemail message from Tim Supple saying, Ben, trouble about coming to Liverpool Street is that I'd have to go all the way out to my college again. And that's at the end of the Central Line. I'm thinking, wait a sec, I recognise that. And I said, what college? So Tim Supple had recently started a job at East 15, which is my college. And in the end, to cut a long boring story short, I had to leave the centre of London to go at about 5 to 9, all the way out on the Central Line to East 15, which I hadn't been to for 30 years. And in the middle of night, 9:30 at night, I'm walking out of Debden Station at the end of the Central Line to walk all the way up to East 15 to have this interview with someone I've never met at the very top of this house where I'd used to been at college. And it was like, wow, this is a real head fuck.
And you almost didn't get in because there was barbed wire covering the whole perimeter, right?
There was barbed wire, there was soldiers, spotlight.
People holding placards with your face on it, and you thought, what is this?
Luckily, I got on the back of a motorbike ridden by a guy called Steve McQueen, and we just jumped over. And I had the weirdest interview. Not because the interview was lovely, it was a nice little chat. But by the end of it, I thought, well, how the hell am I going to get back to South East London? It's like 10:20. And then luckily Tim, bless him, took me all the way back to somewhere, Stratford, and I got on the train.
He gave you a lift.
And I thought, better fucking give me the job.
It's a good sign if he's giving you, if it's, if you're in this car, you sort of think, well, this is more than halfway to, surely. Or it could have been a very difficult end, a much more darker end. Oh, yeah, true.
It might have just driven me out to the...
Yeah. And imagine if he'd given you the lift, and you get in and he starts off, and he goes, by the way, Ben, sorry, we have gone in another direction. and then you're just sat there for the whole drive.
Yeah. I've got to get my train tip. Don't worry, we've still got another 45 minutes. Oh, Christ. Silence.
Yeah.
And I go, what the fuck am I doing with my career?
You just sit in the back, you might find yourself secretly auditioning again. Just maybe trotting out some hits from the CV, bursting into song and pitch perfect tune. Have you ever heard that monologue from Richard? And you go into it, just making him think maybe actually we should.
Anyway, I got the job in the end, so everyone was happy.
The bliss of the abyss is here now.
Do you have fond memories of East 15 acting school?
Yep, very fond memories. Quite an impractical school back then. 1987 is when I left.
1987. Okay.
1980.
Did you go straight from school, or did you have a bit of life in between?
Well, I was going to go to an art school because I went to a school called Gordano. I'm a Londoner, but at 8 years old, family moved to Bristol. So all my, what do you call it? The big years, I suppose. I lived in Bristol and came back for college. But I was going to go to an art school.
Yeah.
So in Gordano was in Portishead, where the band came from.
Sure.
Was a school called Gordano, and they had an amazing drama studio.
Yeah.
Now I was doing art, and my head was in art, and I was going to go and do art at college. And I went round and did some interviews. But as I was doing these interviews, I realised that my heart was not in them, and I suddenly thought, well, I better. What's my heart saying? Drama. But it was late in the year for going to get colleges, and so only about 3, I was like put on the waiting list for 2 of them. I went to about 3, and I didn't get into 2 of them. Put on the waiting list for East 15. Luckily, someone dropped out, so that's how I got in. And that was late in the year, and so I had a sort of year off.
What did you do?
God knows. Also, I got involved in a drama group, so that was something related to my future.
So you're not completely rusty.
What
did you do for money?
I did 1,000 jobs.
1,000 jobs.
1,000 jobs.
Great,
I remember putting tiling down for a company that used to go and not proper tiling.
We could have used you in the show.
Yes, no, not that. Yeah, well, classic actors. Non-trained. What do you call it? Non-experienced jobs.
Yeah, exactly. So just anything where you need a pair of hands and a brain.
Anything, and half would not even a brain. I was a barman everywhere. I was a chef's assistant. Lots of places, not a cook, not
in the
up.
kitchen.
No, but
I've
literally
heard that's a nightmare.
Just washing up and stuff.
Oh right,
and that was there was a bunch of really macho. I've worked at a lot of kitchens, and almost always they're very macho places, or they were. Hopefully, that's changed.
Do you know why that is? Have you ever watched The Bear?
Yes.
The Bear is great, right?
Yes.
And I've watched, it was great. I think it lost its way, personally. But
I haven't even done the second season, but I keep putting it off because I know I want to. But, right, okay.
This first season is one of my favourite things.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But anyway, I got really interested in it because, they also have the yes, chef. That's, that there's the language of the kitchen. Yeah. And it's very militaristic, but it's something that the French, I think it's Napoleon or whatever, around that era, not that he came up with it. They transmogrified the militaristic system into the kitchen. And so there is a very strict hierarchy. There's a very precise language and terminology behind hot, yes, chef, you always call chef, and all of that. And that is why, number one, it has been so male-dominated because the military used to all be male, of course.
Yes.
And it's also very testosterone-filled because it's all very much... And if you do something wrong, you're going to punish for it, and you work these long hours, and it's very tough, and it's very strict. And that's how you get the best food, of course.
Anthony Bourdain.
Yes, exactly.
Kitchen Confidential.
Kitchen Confidential.
Oh,
brilliant.
my God, I don't know how he remembered all that, the drugs he took. But, my God.
Yeah.
The stress.
Yeah.
And... the heat.
Yeah, it's a tough gig.
It is a tough bloody world, man.
Yeah.
And the hours, of course.
I know, it's just so awful.
And just the nature of serving others is a thing that can get you.
Yeah, because I've worked bars, and I usually quite like working bars because, you get dickheads, don't get me wrong, but usually the people you're serving, they're there for a nice reason often. I mean, some people are there because they're depressed or angry, but a lot of the time it's kind of a jovial environment, and it's kind of like, here you go, and maybe they'll be like, thanks, but maybe we'll have a little conversation.
Yeah,
I don't mind working the bar. It can be quite fun.
This is the last time I worked. I'm just going to now talk about my criminal past.
Great. We can swap stories.
I worked as an assistant in the Sun and 13 Cantons. Now, this is so long ago, I don't mind admitting it. Sun and 13 Cantons is near Golden Square in Soho.
Okay.
But it's the west of West Soho. Mm-hmm. It's at the end of Brewer Street and stuff. Anyway, and I worked there for a bunch of Aussie, New Zealand, I don't know if the guys, and it was very macho in the kitchen. Yeah. And I remember not knowing what a ramekin was.
Okay.
And one of the chefs threw one at me.
Fucking hell.
A little ceramic ramekin.
Yeah.
Whistling past my head. This is years ago, so none of these people exist. It's so long ago that...
What had you done, or what had he done?
I think I'd asked for a ramekin, but it's really... I said, I don't know what a ramekin is. Bang!
That's a ramekin.
That's a ramekin, you dickhead.
Great.
Anyway, I didn't really enjoy that.
No.
See above for reasons. And it was shouting, it was bullying.
Yes.
And I was a bit, I was green around the gills. And so, but I did manage, then I became a waiter downstairs, but it was all that sort of Soho marketing, advertising bunch, right? And it was a little bit right up its own arsehole.
Wanker Central.
Yeah. And every time, and then I eventually got to the bar, which I did enjoy, but I didn't chat to them because everyone folded the notes like Sharon Stone does in Casino, folded the notes and handed them to me between their fingers, as if this was the special club they were in. As that you go, just hand me the fucking note, you absolute dickhead.
Fucking note.
Just play the fucking note. First one. No, not the fucking first one. The fucking first one's already fucking down. Just play the fucking notes you're playing earlier. I've been playing the first one. We have the first one. So I just play the notes you're playing there. The you were just doing. Play the notes.
They were too trendy to wear suits, but it was the right jeans and the right shirts, And when especially in the olden days, cricketers used to say, yeah, well, there was Foxy and there was Jonesy and everything was a Y at the end.
Yep.
If you're in a sports team, you've got a Y at the end of your name, so the captain can say Jonesy, Foxy, whatever Smithy. Yeah, and I saw Smithy, he was coming down, and then Jonesy came along. And anyway, they all spoke like that, but they put the Y on the end of every drink. Yeah, give me a Heine, 2 Carleys, a Guinea. You go, a Guinea? No one says Guinea, you absolute dick. Yeah, and all with these folded notes. Anyway, I started to resent these types.
Of course.
Quite a lot. And so I started to just take a bit from the tills, because of course they were old-fashioned tills that would ching, ching, and you wouldn't put so much back, and and initially it was just a couple of quid a night or whatever, and then one day, the police are now going to pick me up tomorrow morning. I remember walking away and I just took the money out of my thing and I'd taken 50 quid. And that was a long time ago.
Or you counted up, or it was a note, a 50 note.
50, no, it wasn't a note. No, that would have been ridiculous. No, it was a bunch of notes.
You'd accumulated 50. That's quite a lot. And so that was the day I decided I'd better not stay. Yeah. It was like, better stop. Someone will balance the books at some point and it won't look quite right.
I say 50 quid. It probably wasn't as much as that. But I remember going, it scared me enough that I took myself off that job.
Yeah.
But I also thought, you know what? I didn't like that pub.
No.
It's changed pub now. I think you're doing great, Sun and 13 Cantons now. I think you're really good. The way the management works, I think it's really lovely and inclusive, and just there's nothing to be said bad about it nowadays.
And actually, you were doing them a favour because their security is a bit lax, and now they've really upped their game.
Exactly.
They're very careful now in a good way.
So they're so much sharper at the managing side of things. Bloody hell!
Fucking
That's such a weird.
Yeah.
Pastime thing to remember. But yeah, East 15, it was a great school. I mean, I know it's changed. I have friends who teach there, and I know it's changed completely.
Of course.
But then it was run, I think it's fair to say, by a mad woman called Margaret Berry, who'd come from Joan Littlewood's. And that's why it was called East 15, because she'd come from Stratford, where Joan Littlewood's theatre workshop, started, remained, and that's where Joan Littlewood did all. And Maggie had been part of the cast and crew.
Right.
She did, I think, mainly wardrobe, but she loved the ethos. And therefore, East 15, the college, came from the postcode of Joan Littlewood's Stratford Theatre.
Yeah.
Although it was way further down.
Does it even have a London postcode? I mean, it's so far out.
So far out.
It might not.
It is Greater London. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
It was on the tube line, but it's 2 stops away from the end of the Central Line.
Yeah.
Which is Epping.
Well, Reading's on the tube line now, mate. So, you know.
Yeah, Reading. Wow. Yeah, it is.
So 3 years acting.
3
Still
years
friends
acting.
with anyone?
Yes.
Good memories, bad memories, a mix?
No, great memories.
Great memories.
But as far as practicality, as far as preparing you for the actual real world, not a jot.
God, yeah. Why is this?
Not a jot. We would never have... We were way too up ourselves. I mean, we'd done a lot of interesting stuff, great stuff, a lot of improvising. A lot of it was, being that character for a couple of days. Apparently now, it's like days and days. And it sounds almost cruel.
Like Daniel Day-Lewis stuff, where you're
yeah.
never allowed to even say your own name. And
all that stuff.
Like I heard a story, his mum came to visit him on the set when he was doing the Lincoln movie. Where, by the way, he would insist everyone call him Mr. President.
Right, okay.
And he refused to recognise her or talk to her because she didn't exist, because he was Abraham Lincoln. And she was there being like, hello, Daniel, kind of thing.
I mean, okay.
I know.
Each to their own.
Yeah.
Each to their own, whatever works. And
yeah. Well, it does seem to work.
For him, he's pretty exceptional, isn't
he?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure I want to go and have a pint with him.
No, although I'd quite like to have a pint with Abraham Lincoln, so maybe if he was...
Ooh, I'd like to... But you know what? I've got a I think Lincoln...
Here we go. Hot take.
Spielbergisms. He is obviously a phenomenal director.
Yeah.
And absolutely rightly so. And so, I mean, I think Jaws is a phenomenal film.
Yeah.
When I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, I had one of the best times I've ever had in the cinema when I saw it first. Exceptional. Schindler's List.
Brilliant.
Exceptional.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan, the first half an hour, I saw it in a cinema and it blew my head away.
Yeah.
Well, that's an unfortunate expression. But my God, a visceral thing I've never encountered. But then you have horns reverberating in the background as something emotive happens in the foreground, and the camera swoops in to a general. Now there's okay, I'm going to tell you my scene, which is Spielberg at his
Your
best.
scene? What do you mean?
No, not my scene. Sorry, the scene where I go Spielberg at his best. That whole half an hour is extraordinarily brilliant.
Yeah.
Then there's that scene where a secretary finds a letter that tells the parents one of their sons has been killed.
Right.
She looks at another letter. There's a whole pool of secretaries just typing on typewriters. What's that? This rings a bell. She finds another letter. It's another son.
Yes, exactly.
Of the same family. And of course they then realise that there's not just 2, there's 3. 3 sons all died.
Oh my God.
Right? 1 remains. Saving Private Ryan. And anyway, these letters, and you see these nameless characters, the secretary handing it to the boss going, "Ooh, we must hand this is important." Then it goes through the corridors of power, and basically there are various people now with these 3 letters, and they end up in the general. I've forgotten the general's name, but it's an actual general. And the general is sitting there in his office, and they're talking about, what do we do, sir? There's these 3 sons. And we've got to go and get the other son out. Anyway,
I forgot that was the setup to the.
That's the setup.
Yeah.
And there's a discussion about whether they should do it or whether they shouldn't. Does America look bad like that? Does the military do such things or don't they? Shouldn't they do such? And the general stops them by saying, "Gentlemen, I'd like to read you a letter." And he goes over to a book and he takes out a letter and he starts to read it. And it's a beautifully elegant sort of... And then he puts the letter down while he's still saying the letter.
So showing that he actually knows it off by
so
heart.
he knows it off by heart. And it is a letter by Abraham Lincoln to a mother who's lost a child about the debt our country and democracy owe your son and you for this. And it's a beautiful letter.
Yeah.
The trouble is, the horns now are rising in the background as the general's eye starts to almost get a tear as he tremulously is saying this very specific letter and knows it off by heart because these 3 or 4 men have come in with these 3 letters about a very specific thing that's happened.
Yeah.
And the chances of that happening are 1 billion to 1. So it's pure sentiment.
Right.
And it's, it's very good. It's very powerful. And the horns rise.
The horns are still rising.
And they're still rising. And as you can almost see the stars and stripes fluttering.
Yeah, of course.
And that's, for me...
Yeah.
Oh, Stephen, calm down. Well, just at least let him read the fucking letter.
Well, that's the thing. But I mean, I love some of his movies, but I think some suffer from that. And I think because he loves to like ring you out and play on the heartstrings.
Yeah.
And I think the risk with any of that is on the bad side of that is schmaltz.
Yeah.
And and syrup. Yeah. And and it can get very sort of like laced in that, and I think when he overindulges those aspects, you get those movies where you're like, oh, it's a bit sweet. Yeah,
I almost wrote a lecture, and it was entitled "From Genius to Penis." It was a really great title, which I should have taken to various lecture halls at universities throughout the land.
Your TED talk.
My TED talk, but it is about. Well, like Peter Jackson did the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. Not my cup of tea. Wasn't really interested in seeing it. But I remember going to it and I was so impressed with the love and care and, and the storytelling. And I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. The Hobbit, I refused to go and see.
Bad.
Huh?
The Hobbit's bad.
Well, it's the golden lighting. Everything looks like it's gold, and it's like
it's shot in a different frame rate as well, so it looks more like a soap opera.
Yes,
weirdly.
Yes, and it's utterly cynical. The smallest book, The Hobbit's not a big book, and he's made 3 films.
Yeah,
how dare you? And then he made King Kong, 5.5 billion hours long. Where's the fucking monkey? Oh, Jesus Christ. And then they go through a sequence of events in that valley when Adrian Brody, there are insects the size of, tanks, and there are dinosaurs, and you go, oh, this is mental. And there's a point where I think Adrian Brody has got insects all over him. He's obviously dead. And that young guy, I've forgotten his name, who played Dancing Billy, what the hell is it?
Billy Elliot.
Billy Elliot. What's the actor's name? Can't remember.
I don't know.
He picks up a machine gun.
The actor you were looking for is Jamie Bell, born 1986.
He's never fired a machine gun, obviously, before. And he shoots all the insects dead off the body of Adrian Brody. And you go, what are you thinking?
And Adrian Brody not a scratch on.
No. Adrian Brody's fine. He survived the definite death. No, he's horrendous death. He survived thanks to Billy Elliot. It's stuff like that. You go, oh my God, have you gone insane?
It's so easy.
A few years ago, you were in it. Is it because your head is so large? And
I was wondering about this. Yeah, I was wondering because it was when we got notes. It was not recently. It was actually a few weeks ago. I was wondering. I was like, notes are really important to get because you have an outsider who's just giving you an honest opinion. And even if you're trying for the thing they're saying, you're like, okay, so I'm not quite getting the thing I'm saying. But I think I was thinking it's like, but then who gives directors notes?
Well,
it's going to be like maybe when you're coming up, lots of people.
yes.
As you get bigger and bigger, less and less.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like the studio heads being like, could we make it 5 minutes shorter? But is anyone really going to be actively challenging or analysing your choices?
You are dead right. Yeah. I think that's the reason, actually, dare whisper it, you shouldn't go and see a director's cut. Because it's almost definitely going to be worse than the theatrical release. And I would say that about all sorts of things, from Apocalypse Now, which I don't know if you've seen it.
I have, yeah.
Redux.
I've not seen Redux, I've just seen...
It's extraordinary, but the first one was a marathon. It, emotionally and viscerally and everything.
Yeah.
And it adds stuff, and it's just too much.
I just don't know why you'd need to add anything to that movie.
No.
It's already long, and it's already epic, and it's already amazing.
It's unnecessary, and you can put that blame for various different ways. The foot of James Cameron, who early in his career did some fantastic films. Yeah. I thought Aliens was superb.
Great
totally
movie.
different to the first one.
Yeah, both very good.
As far as just excitement in a movie.
Yeah.
But then he goes, but The Abyss was a good film as well.
Yeah.
But don't see the director's cut. It's totally unnecessary. He goes.
Sorry, go on.
No.
He
goes into existential stuff about nuclear war or climate change. It just doesn't need it.
Doesn't add to the story, doesn't add to the...
Well, it takes away because you go, whoa, are we seeing your political, let's make the world a better place? Bollocks. Because you can't do that in a film where there's some alien life form downstairs in the sea, in the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, no. No, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. No, it's like, let's deal with the alien...
Do the film, go fuck off and do your research about that another time.
But I was going to ask you, is there more Brando in the Redux? Because of course not. Because I watched this. No. Have you ever watched The Island of Dr. Moreau?
No.
Have you seen the documentary about it though?
No.
Because I've not watched the movie.
Right.
But there's an amazing documentary that explores the making, many failed attempts at, and then final creation of the movie. Right. With Marlon Brando in it.
It's pretty much a disaster, right?
It's a complete shit show from start to finish. You keep watching it, and it keeps getting more and more insane. The original director they have in is this British guy who's quite new. He's done a couple of indie hits, and he gets on with, and he's adapted this book. It's an H.G. Wells book. Yeah. And he brings it, and the studio are like, yeah, it's really good, actually. That's really good, yeah. And he's like, okay, great. I've got this really clear vision, and there's all these, he's got these art boards. There's these. The basic story is this doctor's on an island, and he's altering the genetics of animals and turning them into like animal humans who then he's trying to civilize them and live this society. And he's got all these pictures of these dog men and these pigs with 15 tits, and he's got this really clear vision. And they're like, yeah, it's really good. And we have we've got Bruce Willis currently looking for a role, so we think he could be in it. And the guy's like, okay. And they're like, of course, now the budget will be, 50 times what it was. Yeah. And he's like, I guess, I'll go with that. But because of that, then the studio heads are looking at it like, what's this really expensive film we're putting together? Right, yeah. So he starts to be like massively under the microscope. He starts to go a bit insane. They basically try to kick him out a few times. He, by chance, runs into Marlon Brando and says he's working on the script. Marlon Brando sounds like, that sounds brilliant. I want to be Dr. Moreau. And so just as the studio are about to boot him off, he goes, well, what if Marlon Brando was Dr. Moreau? And Brando told him, I'll only do it if you're in it. So suddenly he's got the cachet and he's got the staying power. But also the movie's budget has now gone 50 times bit, whatever it is. Right?
Oh my God.
And so it's totally insane. Bruce Willis drops out. James Woods comes in. What's his face comes in. Val Kilmer comes in. And then Val Kilmer moves back. And it's just this whole big... And they go out to Australia. They build this set in the middle of nowhere on the rainiest tip of Australia. Right. They are hardly able to shoot. Brando's nowhere to be seen. Eventually, they do kick out the original director. I'll look up his name after so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the story. They kick him out.
The director's name is Richard Stanley.
And they're like, here's your ticket home. And they drive him to the airport and they leave. And then the next day, they're like, the ticket's not been used. So the original director disappears. They're like, okay, hopefully that's not bad. They're trying to, there's like hundreds of extras wearing these pig suits. They're trying to get as much stuff done. It's raining all the time. Brando's nowhere to be seen. Brando's daughter, or was it son, dies.
Yes.
So he's like, I'm not sure if I want to be in the project anymore.
Right.
Val Kilmer is apparently being a complete anus.
Right.
Like he'd be like, someone would be, a shop focus puller would be there, and he'd have a lit cigarette and he'd just start burning the guy's hair as they're taking the shot.
Right.
Just to mess with him.
Right.
Right? So it's just a complete disaster. More and more money getting sunk into it. Eventually, Brando turns up, however many weeks late, and then they're like, everyone's on set like, oh, it's really excited, right? All these actors, by the way, who are just the regular Joes, are like, it was meant to be a 6-week shot, and we were there for 9 months, so it was great for us. They're just getting paid.
Jesus Christ.
Brando turns up. He's meant to be in the morning. He's not there. So afternoon comes. He's not there. They're like, he's coming. Eventually, he turns up. He arrives on set in this crazy car with like a Pope mobile.
Right.
And he's dressed in this like weird white suit, white face paint, an ice bucket on his head, talking in this very weird accent. And the new director they've got in at this point is like, what the fuck is this? And he wouldn't budge from he hadn't learned any of his lines, he hadn't read the script. And every day from shooting then on would be like, the director would go to his trailer, they'd be there for hours, Brando would be rewriting stuff.
Right. They'd
come out, Brando would do a few shots, and then they'd be like, okay, that's enough. And the director was tearing his hair up, the studio, and then there'd be, Val Kilmer would refuse to come out of his trailer until Brando came out. And Brando would refuse to come out until Val Kilmer came out.
Right.
So nothing's getting
shot. So you can see. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Brando becomes obsessed
here.
because a person on the set is the smallest man in the world. This person called Nelson something. Guinness World Record, actually tiniest man in the world.
Right.
And Brando's like, this guy's great. I want him in every scene with me. Dressed exactly like me. And this is where we got the mini-me archetype from the Austin Powers.
Right.
Is from this.
Wow.
So suddenly he's just in every scene, even though it makes no sense. And then perhaps the wildest thing, I mean, this movie opens and is a complete flop. The original director is eventually found. He'd been hiding out in the bushes in Australia, going mad. He infiltrates his way back on set as one of the pigmen, dogmen animals. So he's in the movie.
Oh my Christing Jesus.
And that's not even all the crazy stories from it.
Wow. I need to get a book on that.
It's
David
fantastic.
Thewlis is in it.
David Thewlis he came in quite late.
Right,
yeah.
right.
And, oh yeah, Benedict Cumberbatch was kidnapped. We can talk about that. But the original director afterwards was like, he didn't work for sort of years and years and years because it was so traumatizing to him. So John Frankenheimer was the one brought in.
Oh, wow.
Richard Stanley wrote the original screenplay and was the original
Stanley
director.
Do we know it?
Like I said, so he made these short
About Richard Stanley?
films, Hardware, Dust Devil, and then those were like...
Hardware.
Which apparently is amazing.
Yes.
These indie films, not short films, rather, indie
Yeah,
films.
yeah.
And then, didn't do anything until 2019 after Moreau. And did Colour Out of Space, which is also a good movie, one of those Nick Cage crazy movies.
Wow.
The bliss of the abyss.
It's going back to that
Nelson
thing.
Van der Armour.
People not... You're too big to have anyone to say, Stephen,
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
We all know, a genius. But I think for quite a few years, he needs to have had an editor.
Yeah.
Wolf of Wall Street, I think, starts out as one of the great films.
Yeah.
I think it's got an incredibly brilliant start. But by the end of it, we've seen similar scenes repeated a number of times.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, just take those scenes out. You've got a fucking masterpiece. But it's too long.
Well, apparently Quentin Tarantino, all of his movies are like half an hour to an hour shorter before his editor died. He'd used the same editor from when he started to all the way through. And then after his editor died, he was like, I'll edit my own movies. And suddenly they're all much longer.
Yes, and not better.
And not better for it in general. And there is that thing of you need to winnow it down and carve it, and it's not everything you shoot should be used.
It's what I think about theatre virtually all the time. Why would you make it longer?
Yeah.
Why risk losing the impact or the interest or whatever?
Yeah, you must have been. I've been in shows where you're doing it and it's going on, and you can tell, like the actors are like, "Oh God, this scene." The audience are starting to lose interest, and you're like, "We've still got a while to go, guys."
We know, and it's. I hate to say it. It's we have a lot of middle class white guys directing this thing who are usually they're a bit cerebral, and of course of course they are, but I very rarely run into a director who says, "Yeah, cut, get rid of it, get rid of it." I don't understand it. I've been in Shakespeare where you go, "No, I'm not stupid," and I have read these lines. I remember, I'm actually thinking of a very specific thing in Midsummer Night's Dream, and I read this. I was playing puck. It was a real...
Great. My first ever part.
Really?
Yeah.
Excellent. This was a proper commando at the top of a pub in Deptford.
Great.
And I've forgotten the name of the pub. And no one turned up for rehearsals and all the rest of it. Yes. Anyway, lovely Stephen. He said, and this is just a sort of typical thing. So he said, right. And I said, I've been looking at this thing. It was a joke written for Queen Elizabeth.
Okay.
The first.
Right.
And it was something related to letting loose this shaft that goes into the sun, Elizabeth. Mm-hmm. I later discover after reading Sparks' notes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand this thing, and of course it was a kind of joke of the day
For the court to be like
for
titter,
the
titter.
court. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it at all until someone explained to me. And I thought, if I can't understand it, how on earth is this old language in poetry going to be communicated to an audience?
Yeah.
Well, let's keep it in. Let's keep it in. Let's see what happens. You go, why? But yes, the old editor. All that to say, I think what annoys me,
Yeah.
and it is a curse of theatre in this country, is you go, I know it's only sort of as a badge of honour. No, it's written, so let's see if we can make it work. You go, why? Why sweat and make so? Just make it easier. Because the words you've left, if the play's only even half good, they'll do it.
Yeah.
They'll do it for you.
Is anyone going to watch it and be like, why didn't they include my favourite bit where he shoots the band into the...
The chances are
no.
Almost across the board. There might be one like tie-wearing, bespectacled, ex-lecturer who's going, "Oh, I loved the Queen Elizabeth reference." And that's also the trouble about Shakespeare anyway, doing any of the clowns.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got a fool. And you go, actually, a fool is a bugger.
Yeah, it's such a hard part.
Because they're always punning, and it's always of the day, and it is an old relic of comedy.
It is, yeah. You have to find ways to. Often when I've seen people do it well, they'll sort of brute force in some extra bits to make it more relevant, or maybe amp up some of the physical jokes.
Yes.
So that even if we don't understand what the reference is, they're doing something funny anyway.
You always have some cock reference.
Yeah,
there'll always be a clown doing some miming of cock bit. And you go, definitely not the gatekeeper, what's he in Macbeth?
A gravedigger? No.
Not the gravedigger, that's Hamlet.
Oh God, of course.
What is he? Knock, knock, knock. It's all jokes on knocking.
The drunken porter.
And the drunk man who rises. Oh, he rises. Hey! And up goes the fist. Yeah. We did understand it was a cock gag. Where's the fucking monkey? Always the falls are really, really difficult.
Who have you played then?
Touchstone. But it was outside. It could have been one of those awful shows. I commuted to Oxford, and you had to walk into Magdalen College.
Oh, okay.
And oh my God, I came from Hackney at that stage, And I remember getting on the train from Hackney and finally arriving at Oxford. And you go, walking through the grounds.
Different world.
There's a brass band with the cricket going on, and there's the silhouetted, spires silhouetted against a beautiful evening sky. And we're just going past, what are the rivers called? The beautiful names of the rivers. And yes, and there's an isthmus, and we did it on this isthmus. Just this, jut of land, and we had bleachers. Yeah. Looking down on it, so it was beautiful. We could arrive on boats from behind the audience and step onto the land.
That's great.
And of course, it's the Arden Forest woods.
Yeah,
woods of Arden, whatever it was. So it was a different land,
Yeah.
And of course, it was city meeting country, and so Touchstone had come from the court and was in country, but it was really nice. But also, the reason I started that was because it was all edited.
Right.
Because it was outside, and you couldn't ask people to sit there for 3 hours.
No, absolutely.
Diddly-diddly-dum. Yeah. So it was, and the cast just got on. It was just one of those magical things. It could have been awful. And it wasn't much money. Obviously, it wasn't much money, Ben. We know that. We know that's the punchline to your theatrical anecdotes. That's what we should always say. And of course, there wasn't that much money. Every lecture, every talk.
Well, apart from Game of Thrones, obviously.
Apart from that's TV.
That's TV.
Not theatre, mate. Not bloody theatre.
Exactly. They paid for everything for you there, didn't they? So what would be your favourite piece of work that you've ever done?
Ooh, God, isn't it funny that obvious questions like that?
Least favourite is the other.
Really unimaginative questions. Like, no, but it's funny that you ask an obvious. It's like saying, so where does your name come from? You realise you've never thought about it. I've had it for 60 years or whatever. I don't know. I've asked people, where does that name from come? And you go, I don't know. I've never really thought about it. You've never thought about it? Always amazes me, stuff like that. Anyway, best job.
You got it.
I used to say I think it was just because pantomime often gets a bad rap.
Right.
Because often it's shit.
Yes, well, it can be, like anything else.
I think I was very lucky that in the actor muso world we had these rock and roll pantos, of which Dan has done one or two. And they were, as a type of theatre, the rock and roll pantos that I did, and I did quite a number, were brilliant.
Yeah.
For having a 90-year-old and a 6-year-old both falling about laughing at the same time.
That's great.
And everyone in between, And they just did what they said on the tin. The music was cool.
Yeah.
I had a tape I was listening to not long ago. Charlie Baker? Comedian?
Famous for?
He's a comedian. He does football shows, as a pundit.
Yeah.
He does punditry.
Yes. I know this guy. Yes. Of course.
He was our Aladdin. Yes, Aladdin.
Who are you?
And I was always the dickhead who fell down 1,000 times. So I was wishy-washy. I was Jack. I was oh my God, I can't think of any of them now. The friend of the prince or the friend of Aladdin, or but he's an idiot. And I was very
stretching
very
your
good.
range. Yeah.
Yes, it was very tricky, Robert, trying to get that. I remember seeing a Jack Russell and the Jack Russell from a distance. The owner had some big stick, and the Jack Russell kept jumping up to try and get it. And all it did was kept hitting its head. And it fell down, slight concussion. And then it would jump up and hit its head. It did that about 15 times, as far as I could see, from about 100 yards away. And I thought, that's my wishy-washy. So I did it with a kind of Rick Mayall madness.
Brilliant.
But, and I did love falling down. So it happened a lot. And he'd have rule of 3.
Yeah.
So that rule of 3 happened a great deal. There's a lot of rule of 3.
Rule of 3 plus pratfalls. That's comedy.
And then the keyboard, so we'd have a live band on stage and we'd be in front, blah, blah. And it was cool. And it was mainly sort of Motown, sort of a lot of that at that stage. It's modernised a bit now, but you know, all songs and a lot of care given to songs that would actually push the story forward. So you're not just suddenly singing a song. All that sort of care and attention. They were very funny. There would be a lot of laughter in the audience, which, as you know, doesn't happen too often. And one of my favourite things, and I wanted to get it, one on the inside lapel, was this keyboard which had all these effects of. You'd press one key and it'd have, you know, the sound was like cartoon running.
So it was like a sound deck, but in a keyboard. Yeah.
All these things. So I did a whole story of a man farting, going, so all belly, splash. A man basically farting, realises his stomach, something's eaten, has to go to the toilet, has a dump. But you had all these sounds. Clang! And I just remember the debates and discussions, quite heavy, about, no, it should be a floor tom. No, it has to be, right, no, kick drum into floor tom or something like that. And and then the snare for the type of hit it was.
What type of hit it was, yeah.
In the belly,
right, yeah.
in the head, in the face, all different sounds. Cowbell, you know. No, it's got to be cowbell. I disagree, mate. It has to be the floor tom. You know, floor tom into the kick. You know, diddly-dum. That's definitely a snare. No, it's a rim shot. But there'll be discussions like that.
Yeah.
And sound effects. And we were talking about it, and we all found ourselves being quite serious about a certain effect or a bunch of effects. And we're going, if we had been rehearsing Hamlet, would we be this intense about it? Going to this much detail about it? And we all decided, no, it's obviously the panto is way more serious. And then in the panto, you get situations like once you've done the 78th matinee, you know, 3 weeks after Christmas.
They do cram in the shows, don't they?
And maybe you're hungover, or, you know, you go, do you know what, I've been in North Wales now for 4 months or whatever it is. I just want to go home. Blah, blah, blah. And, you know, tempers fray and da-da-da. Because you work hard on pantomime. Work hard, 2 shows a day. And these were physical. Most of the jobs I did in those days, I would sweat. So it was like my gym.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, stay in good shape.
Yeah.
And
especially the stuff I was doing. But you'd go into a corridor and there might be Nana's the monkey, dressed as Nana's the monkey, having a proper fucking argument with the fairy. You know, going, no, you always stand there when I'm coming on. No, sorry, Jane, I'm not having it. Just fucking don't move there, says Nana's the monkey to the fairy, you know, in the corridor. No, you fuck off. Putting her head back on before she has to go back on stage.
Yeah. It's the kind of thing you see a still of it with no context. You're like, how could this possibly be?
Yeah. That's a
wonderful.
You could never reenact that and get away with it. No, I don't believe that scenario. But yeah,
that's amazing.
So as a general thing, pantos were really great fun because they were shows that did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There we go.
There's the Daniel Day-Lewis serious actor answer.
That is amazing. I mean, listen, you know, you've worked, you know, on big productions with major names, but your favourite ever is where there's sound effects of you getting the shits.
Well, that's why I wanted one of those like, keyboards on my lapel. So when I am going, oh fuck, there's the bus.
You are listening to Bliss of the Abyss. Ooh yeah.
How good is that?
That reminded me, and please steal this great idea, of an idea for a panto where you get it's Aladdin and in comes Genie, and I wish I had the body of Brad Pitt, say, and suddenly, boom, there's the body of Brad Pitt in front of you. It's just the body. Or I wish I had, you know, all the money in the world and it all comes down on you and you die. Or the best house in the world, but it's in the middle of war-torn Beirut.
Right.
And so it comes down to one guess. And of course, I don't know the punchline to this, I'm afraid. So
okay. Well, we can workshop it.
It would have to be, you go, oh my God, I've got to be really absolutely correct.
I'd want to write it out and have footnotes.
It needs to have legalese, grammar there for the right comma in the right place. Otherwise, but that would be the idea, that it always isn't quite,
That was really good. I did a show once. It wasn't exactly a panto, but it was a kids show at Christmas. It had panto elements of it. It was an adaptation of The Jolly Christmas Postman, which is a great book.
I don't know The Jolly Christmas Postman.
Oh, well, your kid's too old for it now, but it's a brilliant book. He delivers letters from like fairy tale characters and has interactions. They give him letters to deliver, and he has like interactions with them, and it's all like a funny twist on their story as he interacts with them.
Ooh, nice.
It's really good. And there was one bit in our show where there's a genie, and he goes, "Oh my God, I will grant you one wish." And I'm like, hold on, aren't there meant to be 3? And he goes, cutbacks.
Bang, superb, absolutely superb.
It was just a gag we enjoyed doing every night. Everyone always laughed at it. We would laugh at it. Like it was just perfect.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And that's the joy of panto. And I do honestly believe in as far as the most direct way of communicating that line to get the audience to understand. And you're allowed to say line. Does it go say line, look at audience? Or is it say line, look at audience, say line? All that stuff.
Yeah.
But
it's tweaking it, and it's actually funnier if I look at the audience for that bit and then look away.
Yes.
For some reason, that's funnier.
Yep.
So we'll do it that way.
Me running out in that first scene.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Don't
know why. Still don't quite know why.
Yeah.
And I think it's so good because it is educational in terms of, this is stagecraft.
Yeah.
At its most direct, I suppose. You are, and ideally it should be sad as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or horrific or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always got a happy ending, doesn't it, Panto?
Always has to have a happy ending.
Yeah, you need the jeopardy.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Of course.
What about, and we're running out of time.
Go.
This portion has been excised for legal and professional reasons. Please enjoy the show.
So you've just sort of done that thing where you go into an audition and someone says, right, so Ben, nice to see you. Hi, yeah, nice to see you. Tell a joke. Knock, knock. I don't know. Someone's here. Is someone there? I don't know.
You're the man who almost always has a joke. You come in with new gags almost every day, but you dry up in the audition.
Suicide bombers. What makes them tick?
So anyway, look, thank you very much for being generous with your time, but we did mention Game of Thrones obliquely earlier,
we did mention it,
and I know I was a big fan. It became less of a fan as it went on, but it's a massive show, and I'm sure the fact that you were in it, people would love to hear the story.
Well, shall I say I'll end up, so Ian Glenn?
Yes.
So, yes, there was, it's called Stormborn is the episode I was in. You see, I never watched it, so I had no idea. Okay. So I went to the audition, and I got this part for like Merchant 2.
Speaking role.
A speaking role. I'm talking to Merchant 3 and 1.
And looking down on him and wishing you were Merchant 1.
Merchant 1 was rubbish. No, rubbish part. Right, so we're all in a... Yeah, anyway. I get the job for Game of Thrones. Fine. Agent says, okay, well, you've got to go for a wardrobe call. Okay, so wardrobe, as it might sound, is when you go out and you are fitted up with your costume. And, almost definitely it's in Soho or somewhere in London, or you'll go to Angels, which is at least on the end of the tube line, which is a massive sort of warehouse of costumes, reams and thousands of costumes. Amazing place. And you'll be, fitted and measured, and you'll try various things on. And that happens on every television thing that goes. Anyway, so yeah, they want to see you for wardrobe. Brilliant. For merchant too. And so you're going to be flying out to Belfast. So for what? For the wardrobe call? Yep. Okay. First clue about how well Game of Thrones is doing in the world.
Belfast, Northern Ireland? No. Belfast, East London.
No, Belfast Road. Belfast Road. Yeah. Oh, that's Penge. Why are you sleeping, Penge? So I go to City Airport, and it just so happens that the winds that day, I can't remember if it was in London or taking off or in Belfast, too high. I was there for about 3 or 4 hours. Eventually I was told by my agent, and then Game of Thrones, Ben, just go home. So I turned around and went home. And then the next day, I go back, or a couple of days later maybe, I go back to City Airport and I get on a plane to go to Belfast in Northern Ireland. And then I get off the airport, and there's a driver. A driver is, forgive my Northern Irish accent, but I'm talking to him. I've forgotten his name. Jim? No, can't remember his name.
We'll call him Jim.
Let's call him Jim. But Jim was talking all about. I talk to him and I say, "So is this just a nice little gig?" He says, "No, I've been working on this Game of Thrones ever since it started." And he was going, "Me and all the other guys." And I said, "How many of the other guys?" Was there about 40, 50 of us? I go, "My God!" He says, "So it'd been a whole." And anyway, it was an interesting little side note to find out that this one show has so many tentacles of the industry. So even the drivers are, of course, local drivers. Yeah. And they've got this regular gig for years because of the success of this one show. And as they drive me to the same place where Titanic, I think they're called the Titanic Studios. It was where Titanic sailed from in Belfast. And so they're building another studio. And it wasn't for Game of Thrones, but I think it was for Netflix or Disney. It was for Disney, which means there was going to be more employment for all the locals, for drivers and other people, and for people serving food and, loads of other jobs. Anyway, and this is the background stuff of what these huge projects can do. Say Jack Nicholson to me.
Jack Nicholson.
Later on. Anyway, so I go into wardrobe. It just so happens that the designer from The Crown, and I'd done The Crown a couple of months before, and I go, "Oh, hello, what are you doing here?" And he says, The Crown was so difficult, so I'm doing Game of Thrones. It's a lot easier. And I was going, "Well, why is it easier? It's still a massive, massive project." And he was going, "Because in The Crown, when you're dressing people, especially if you're dressing the Queen or the Prince or any of the royal family, which of course you're doing frequently, you're doing not one costume a day, but many. Whatever situation the Queen goes to, she is in a different dress. And it has been documented, photographed, in the 50s, in the 60s, 70s, whatever. And so they all know that's what she wore then. So he said it was very intense because you had so many costumes. Whereas for the merchant, getting back to my character, he literally just chucked some fur and leather and boots at me and a big belt. He said, "There you go. Yeah, that'll do." It took about 20 minutes. And I said, "Right, what happens now?" He says, "That's it. Off you go," says wardrobe designer. And I go, "Okay, back where?" "Well, back home." So I walk out of the studios, I get back in with Jim, and Jim takes me back to the airport, and I get on a plane and I go back home, and I fly back home for the 20 minutes. And that shows you how enormous. Oh, and I said to Jim, "So Jim, bloody hell, isn't it mad? I'm coming all the way from Sydenham to Belfast to get dressed up as merchant too." And he said, "You think that's amazing? Someone came over from Los Angeles the other day for a wardrobe call, a wardrobe fitting." For God's sake, that's how much money they made. That's how much money that they could afford all this stuff. So the Jack Nicholson thing.
Yes. But tell us the scene first.
The scene.
That you're in Game of Thrones.
So, anyone who knows the story well, Game of Thrones fans, GOT fans, I didn't even know what that meant. I said, what's GOT? And everyone sort of slapped their head and looked at me like I was the most stupid person. Game of Thrones, you bloody idiot. You Bristolian bloody idiot. I am from Bristol. So, yes, Ian Glenn plays, I don't know what his name is as a character, but he suffers from this disease or...
he gets the stone flesh thing that happens.
Stone flesh or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And there is a scene where gorgeous Ian Glenn is stripped to the waist. He is biting on some leather, a belt maybe, and he's saying to his servant, a poor cowering man standing next to him, who's got some tools, some knives or implements, and he's just saying, just do it. And he's ordering this servant to pull this stuff off his skin. And in the script that I originally got, I remember reading this scene before my scene. And it says about when this man is pulling these scabs off. It said, right, makeup department, we want this to be the most disgusting, bloody, pussy, vomit-inducing scene you've ever seen. Do your best. That was the note in the script.
And then there was just a picture of you next to it. This is all we shall require.
As soon as the camera went on me, the whole audience had vomited. So that's that scene. Pulling the stuff off his flesh, pus, blood, goo. It fades out, and then it fades up to an extreme close-up of a spoon going into a crusty cheese and ham pie. I pull the spoon up to my mouth. It's my spoon, my hand, my mouth. Up to my mouth and put it in. So there's this goo all over my bearded face. And that's the cut. And it was so disgusting, they made a gif of me just repeatedly going off this gooey stuff into my mouth. And that was interesting because it was such a close-up. In fact, it wasn't my hand because they had to have someone holding the spoon directly behind me because the camera was virtually up my nose. It was so close. So
that's how you became a meme.
I became a meme, yes.
Yeah.
I was very proud of that.
But tell me about Jack Nicholson.
No, the Jack Nicholson thing and talking about the concept of if you ever go to a film shoot, you will be astonished by the army of people and departments, the size, the numbers of people working on it. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
And Jack Nicholson was interviewed and being asked when he was in his pomp in the 80s or whatever, you know, how can you consciously take the huge amount of money that you do, you know, whatever it was back then, you know, 6 million for a movie, it's much bigger now, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he says, because if I say yes, you know, without being big-headed, if I say yes to a project, yes to a film, in other words, if I green light a film, that is employing thousands of people.
Yeah.
If Jack Nicholson says yes to a film, the film is on. It's going. It's being made, and people chuck money at it. If a B-movie actor does it, it might not be. It might be shelved. Nothing. It might never see the light of day. Jack Nicholson says yes. Loads of people get employed for many months, and they get a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's all. Yeah.
You know, Robin Williams is a similar kind of thing. He would, as a stipulation of any movie he did, once he got big enough, he said you have to employ, or if they're not employable, then take care of, I think it was 10 homeless people.
Ah, yes.
And so thousands of these people got helped just because he had that stipulation in his contract, because he was just wanted to help people out. It was just... And again, I mean, those people wouldn't get that help if it wasn't just for one man being principled and it's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And now I've got...
Great.
There's, again, I was in... A friend of mine is a choreographer, and she, bless her, Fran, got managed to every now and again she'd call up, and she was given liberty. Because the director trusted her, as well any director should, trusted her to people, get a bunch of people to be in this scene. Obviously, we were just extras virtually, but sometimes she'd get us, as a choreographer, to be dancing extras, which made us a little bit more expert and gave us a bit more money. And so I was doing the Muppet movie with a bunch of mates, and it was all a great big, lovely jolly. And that's all we were doing, working with Ray Liotta.
No way.
And, oh no, I forgot his name. Danny Trejo.
Oh, yeah.
Danny Trejo.
Amazing.
Ray Liotta I was a bit scared of.
Of course. Danny Trejo you weren't scared of?
Danny Trejo is the loveliest man in the world.
Really?
And he had... Oh, God,
Which
he's
Muppets
a lovely...
movie was this?
It was the Muppets Most Wanted. Tina Fey's in it.
Yeah.
Flight of the Conchords guy's in it.
Yeah.
What's his name?
It's not Jermaine. It's not Jermaine Clement. It's the other guy, isn't it?
No, Jermaine Clement.
It is Jermaine Clement.
But the other guy wrote
Does
the music.
Right,
Yes. Jermaine, he was lovely. All sorts of people. Very nice. I was just, backstage, but it was all good fun, and we learned dances with Danny Trejo and Ray Liotta. Danny Trejo went to not Folsom Prison, a very famous...
he went to an actual...
Proper prison.
Proper high max security, like a Rikers Island or one of those...
Famous American
prisons,
renowned, notorious prison.
Yeah.
He became the champion boxer at his weight in that prison, which tells you something.
Wow.
In that prison, he took the 12 steps where he got clean of drugs, because he was a violent criminal. And he was on everything, and he got off drugs, and he still lectures today, goes all over everywhere and lectures about the 12 steps program, which got him clean. He came out and he became a delivery boy. He delivered to a certain film, and I've forgotten what the film was, and the director said, "Who's that guy?" And they said, "Oh, he's just delivering something to someone." I said, "No, I want him." And they filmed him because he's so, if you know what Danny Trejo looks like, he looks brilliant.
Yeah.
And Danny Trejo showed me his mother's tattoo, which was done in, damn it, whatever the prison is.
Yes.
Let's call it Sing Sing. And he said it was done with a guitar wire.
No way.
Yeah. Tattooed, not with a needle, because they wouldn't be allowed, the end of a guitar string.
Wow. Just with
his mother's tattoo. Anyway, that's Danny Trejo. So, on that, the reason... Bloody hell.
There we go.
The reason I started that story was because I was talking to another wardrobe man, and I was saying, wow, what's the biggest, wardrobe thing you've ever done? He said, I was doing the Scorpion King.
Yeah.
The second Mummy film, I think, with Dwayne Johnson.
That's right.
And he said, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's loads and loads of battles in the deserts of leather-clad, armoured, this, that, and the other armies, And he said that was relentless because there were about 7,000 extras, all fighting, blah, 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 before they didn't use the CGI, which they could have done as guys. Anyway, loads and loads of people, and that's all that happened. It was just a constant treadmill. And I was going, so what do you do with all those costumes and da-da-da? And he said, well, those particular costumes are somewhere in Estonia, out in the country, in a massive warehouse. And I said, doing what? He said, just hanging there. That's where they're stored. And I say, why are they stored there? Why wouldn't they be recycled? Because the producer, I believe, had said, I don't want to see any of these costumes being replicated or rented out, hired out to any other film, because this film has got to look unique and on its own. And I don't want to see, which I guess must happen.
Yeah.
You instead of using all the things, you just say, do you want costumes like this? Oh yes, please. We're doing another desert warring.
Exactly.
Sword and sandal shit, and they get those, which makes sense. But what it means is there are warehouses that contain well-made, professionally made costumes, just sitting there forever.
In Estonia.
Our
loss is Estonia's gain.
It's like at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, isn't it? When he goes into that massive place and they put the carton or the trunk, whatever you call it. Anyway, there you go. The weird world of films.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well,
good.
Ben, honestly, thank you. Real
That's great.
pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the
you
show.
very much. That was
You're
a
a
real
legend.
pleasure.
And can I just say you're doing amazing work in this show, and I love working with you, honestly.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please give us 5 stars and consider becoming a subscriber and maybe even supporting us on Patreon. Really, really, really helps me continue making this show. If you haven't enjoyed it, then you can fuck off. Many, many thanks to Nils Hennis Steer for the amazing music and to Dave Fox for the cool artwork. Please keep coming back every week for more Bliss of the Abyss.
You have one message. Message 1.